Welcome to the Underground.
Turn me up, bitch!
My Little Underground with Peter A.
It's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. Make sure you're listening anywhere you get podcasts, and be sure to follow me on socials at MLUpod. Today on the show, we have the executive director of the 501c7 nonprofit organization Independent Entertainment Media Coalition, Flisadam Pointer, and she also runs the music blog Envert, and we talked all things media journalism and maneuvering the space as an independent content creator, curator, journalist, what have you. And her nonprofit organization is dedicated to giving inspiring media journalism, media journalists, a platform. And we also talked about, going to concerts and getting vaccinated and all that stuff, record store day, and kind of encouraging people, if anyone is discouraged, to starting their own media platform and how to kind of overcome that. Because this landscape is very congested, and, we try to tell people, to keep your head up and to kind of stick out and be yourself. So welcome Flisadam Pointer here on My Little Underground. All right. Flisadam, welcome to My Little Underground. I'm so happy to have you. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm falling apart, but I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, you put out some fires before we got rocking, which is great. It's great to hear.
I could be a firefighter if I wanted to.
Yeah, that's what we do here. Good. I want to talk to you about your 501c3, the Independent Media Coalition. So
C7.
how did this? What?
501c7.
It's a 501c7. Oh, what's the difference?
Great question. So,
Yeah.
A 501c3, while both are nonprofit in nature, they both have different tax mandates, and they have different formation mandates. So a C3 primarily has to focus a lot on public and open outreach. So you'll see a lot of nonprofits that are community-based, that we're talking about entertainment, right? Think about a lot of the music venues that are near you. A lot of them are 501c3 because they are open to the general public. People can come in, take educational classes in music and arts. A 501c7 has the ability to operate as a private group. So think about fraternities or sororities, where they have a charitable wing, but in order to become a member and receive the benefits of the organization, you have to actually pay into membership and dues and things like that. So that's the main difference. One is generally open to the public, and one is typically member-based.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Wow. Thank you for the education. I think that's why I brought you on here, to teach me some things.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah. So with the Independent Media Coalition, how did that all come together?
To be quite honest, it came about because I was kind of sick of the divisiveness. I am based in northern New Jersey, so our neighboring cities are the larger metropolitan areas, New York City. And typically what I will find is my conversations that I had with independent artists, they would get overwhelmed because a lot of the journalists that are from New Jersey, they only covered or focused their main beat in New York City. So a lot of the New Jersey artists felt slighted. So when I started to talk to a lot of the journalists that I knew from the same area, they would say, well, there are not a lot of media opportunities in New Jersey. So essentially, the IEMC, the Independent Entertainment Media Coalition, started because I wanted to have a reference for everyone. So whether you were on the creating side, meaning you're a musician, a filmmaker, or any other discipline, or if you were on the curating side, meaning you were a podcaster, a journalist, a vlogger, you actually had the ability to connect with each other. So the IEMC's goal is to kind of merge the two together, to say, hey, we exist, we need to work together.
Right. You exist to help others know that they exist too, which is great.
To connect people. We're just like a connector. I guess that's what the simplest way to put it is.
Great. You're a bridge. I like that. With your Media Mogul in the Making series, what is the criteria for one to be a mogul in the making in your eyes?
It's so broad. I think that the Media in the Making series was a way for me to showcase all of the amazing curators like yourself and others that are doing the work that may not be on someone else's radar because they have a niche or because they focus on a particular genre or discipline of entertainment. And the way you qualify is by being passionate about what you're doing, being consistent, and to really have a care and respect for those subjects that you're featuring.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Thank you, by the way.
You're
That's so
welcome.
great. Yeah, I read some of the other moguls in the making. I think, yeah, it's doing the work, and it's good to see that you have created a platform to showcase other people that are working hard at making their own thing work, whatever that is. With a lot of the virtual events you've been hosting over the last year or so, giving advice to a lot of moguls in the making to get some funding for their respective projects. Do you have any in-person events in the can or ready to go now that everyone's getting vaccinated, et cetera?
Yes, actually, we do. We are working on a Pride panel where we're going to have a small in-person session where people can come in. And then we're going to have a virtual session for those who are not able to attend physically, whether they aren't in the greater Newark, New Jersey area, or they're just not vaccinated or don't feel comfortable, quite frankly, coming out to formal events. We are working on that panel for that. So essentially, the panel itself, we're going to be exploring the topic of queer coverage, right? Underneath the scope of why is it that there aren't queer representation in the media, meaning the writers that are telling these stories, and or the queer artists and entertainers that are creating content that are finding it hard to be marketable or palatable to be picked up by a media outlet. So that's the gist of the conversation without giving too much away.
Okay, yeah. So, you being based in Jersey, and your whole idea is kind of bridging the gap to creators and stuff like that. But when you're planning these in-person events, are you, keeping it within Jersey, coming into New York City, or going into other areas? Like, will you go to like Philly, for example? You know what I mean?
Right now we're focusing on Jersey just because I find that the media community in Jersey often gets overlooked. We need a lot of TLC and we need a lot of community building here in the state of New Jersey. So that's where our primary focus is. We wouldn't be opposed to actually joining forces with other individuals. There are a lot of other nonprofit organizations and or individuals in media that are creating amazing communities, such as Nadira Simmons of The Gumbo, who does a really big Sample Sundays event, or Sample Saturdays, I believe, in Brooklyn. And there are other artists that are creating stories in like Miami that are like doing the road to Art Basel inside of Wynwood, inside of Miami. So we're not opposed to traveling. It just, we know that in order for us to really reach out to other people, we have to make sure that we sweep in front of our door first. So we want to make sure Jersey is good before we kind of like branch out.
Got you. Makes sense. Totally. You being an experienced music journalist running your own website with Envert, what have you noticed about the landscape of the music press?
Oh, I mean, so much. So I don't know, I just wear so many hats now. I get to understand it from different viewpoints. So if I put on a music journalist hat, I'm starting to notice that a lot of the glitz and glamour that you see with music journalism, like, for example, people chase after a byline, and that's like getting their work published in like a Billboard or a Fader or a Consequence, formerly Consequence of Sound, or like any other Rolling Stone. Think about the large platforms. There's a lot of legwork that goes into that. And a lot of these music journalists, they don't really have much equity in the content that they're producing. So if you think about one person in particular that I'm thinking about is Letty, and Letty is formerly of Power 106 in Los Angeles. And she was saying that she found a hard time leveraging her past interviews on the radio station because they were owned by that particular media group. So I'm finding that a lot of journalists are now walking the tightrope of finding a way to completely monetize their art form to be paid an equitable rate versus relying heavily on the push and the, I guess, validation from these larger platforms. So you see things like Substacks coming up. You see a lot of things like newsletters forming. You see a lot of artists journalists that are going to the extent of creating their own YouTube channels and creating their own podcasts, right? Really taking back ownership of all of the content that they give away to these publications. So that's one of the things that I've learned the most about. Just because an artist or journalist has a lot of bylines and Rolling Stone, Billboard, the Grammys, all of these large publications, they're doing press junkets for these big films and these big award shows. A lot of them are not being paid. And that blew my mind. Like, I was under the impression of, like, to me, music journalists are like rock stars in their own right. They have the ability to usher in talent, to usher in sounds, right? To give their stamp of approval. And to know that a lot of it was for like pennies on the dollar, or they were working in exposure, right? There has to be some way to balance it all. And with the IEMC, that's what I'm learning, like being able to cultivate like webinars and sessions and panels to talk about these things, because on the outside, for the aspiring journalists that are entering into the field, they're under the impression that these people are making a lot of money. These people have a lot of leverage, and that's just not the case.
Okay. So from like when a journalist is covering, an artist, so like artist coverage, for, example, throughout all the blogs or anything that you've seen, with your experience, what have you noticed from that perspective? Like, about artists getting coverage? Like, what are you seeing? Certain people or certain styles of music getting coverage, certain artists with certain platforms getting coverage more? Like, what are you seeing in that from that perspective?
Absolutely. So I see it two-sided. The first being that Envert was started to service the artists that weren't getting coverage, more specifically the independent community. I find that a lot of publications are now opening up to the idea of supporting artists that aren't backed by a major label. So that's one side. But I am noticing that they still, for whatever reason, aren't comfortable in doing a lot of curation and really building with these artists as their platform grows. So think about, for example, Phoebe Bridgers, right? She's a huge artist, right? There's no denying that she's a huge artist, but she's also independent. And it wasn't until that she started to get popularity outside of these publications that then all of a sudden these publications started to run to her. So I really hope that music journalism will get back to its roots of like really discovering artists, really finding new sounds, new waves, rather than kind of treading lightly and safely on like what's happening now. And a lot of that has to do with like clicks and advertisers and who's being pitched to them. But I just wish that music journalism would kind of go back to that discovering artist phase.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. But one thing I've noticed as well is a publication might cover an artist when their first EP or album comes out, but when they, put out more stuff, they don't get the same amount of attention. But that can also mean maybe there's like a lot of staff shifts or people getting fired or whatever. But I don't know. But I just noticed that there's a certain inconsistency with covering certain artists.
That and I didn't want to say it, but since you brought it up, right? So one of the big things that has been happening in music journalism and broadly in entertainment journalism is you'll see that a lot of those staff positions are cut immediately. A lot of people thinking about Pitchfork, their union just won the benefits that they were fighting for, rightfully so, to be paid $60,000, to have paid leave, to have sick days, to have health insurance, a lot of these basic needs, right? So instead of these publications looking to create a foster a relationship with these writers to give them what they need in order to be producing writers, they would rather go out and freelance people, right? Because they don't have to pay all of the back end that comes along with staffing, which I understand, right? But when you have some, and I'm just going to pick on them for right now, but when you have a platform like Billboard, where they have the Billboard Music Awards, they have these charts, they have a large advertisement budget, for them to put just a little bit of that money into writing staff would definitely, you would see that shift change with coverage. A lot of times it's either because, like you said, staffing shortages, either they don't have the relationship building with these artist communities where they know about music before it's coming out, or they're just treading lightly on what happens to work. And a lot of it also, I hate to say it, it's kind of like monkey see, monkey do. Like some of these publications will see one cover story for an artist, and then they'll say, okay, now we're going to cover their album. That's not how it works. You're supposed to cover it before they get big, right? Because now it's just a pile up of a lot of coverage that you're saying, where all of the music publications will cover this one EP. And then when the new single for the next EP, the album comes out, is crickets. It's because they haven't taken the time to build relationships with these artists. And you'll see artists verbalize these concerns too. Like, why is it that I don't get any coverage when I I use Justin Bieber. He's a terrible example, but I use Justin Bieber, right? Justin Bieber, the argument was, why is it that when I make music, you constantly only want to cover it when it's pop sounding, when it's R&B sounding, because I am othered in R&B, I don't get coverage for my R&B music. Or when you do cover it, you misgenre it, or you paint it in a way that's more appeasing to your audience rather than just reporting on what I'm creating. So there's a lot of elements that go into that. The one heaviest is obviously staff shortages. The second is they're not taking time to build relationships with these artists. And the third is kind of like not being brave enough, I think, to really jump out there to discover new trends, new sounds, new artists, what's coming afterward. They would rather bank on the formidable clicks, views, and stuff like that, which translates into money.
Okay. So with Envert, what is your goal? Like what did you set to accomplish with it? And how are you trying to set yourself apart from other music blogs?
There were so many things that went into forming Envert. I kind of just like, the back end story was I kind of was annoyed. I was driving in the car and I'm from Hillside. So we listen to like Power 105.1, Hot 97, WBLS. Those are like the major radio stations. And I would turn between the stations and the same song would be playing on all of them. Literally one day this happened. And I was just like, there has to be someone else making music. Like there has to be another person out there. So we started because we felt the need that being in the #1 media market, to have so many artists creating music and for them not to get any coverage was a disservice to the music lovers. So that's how we started. And now what we're doing is, as we advance and progress, is our goal is to really be as wide netting as possible when it comes to sounds and selections. We first started off being a hip hop blog, and then we transitioned to hip hop and R&B, and then we transitioned to hip hop, R&B, and alternative. And now we're covering all different types of genres, right? The goal is essentially to broaden our editorial approach. So to do profile pieces, to do more artist interviews, to transition to digital content, doing like video interviews, live streams, and things like that. And then formally to get into like actual showcases, like where we have artists come and perform, right? You may not know of these artists, but we're here to create music community. So that's our goal, is to really build on what we started and expand that in different areas, whether it's live events, or who knows, maybe an e-magazine, but we're just looking to kind of transition across mediums.
So when you're looking at artists to cover, what are you looking at? Are you looking at just good music, or are you also taking into account a following?
So when we first started, we didn't consider following at all, right? We would cover artists if they had 2 followers on social media. Like it could be their very first single. If we liked it, we liked it. So I know that now that's like the wrong approach to take. Being the business side is like, okay, we have to get clicks. But I would say that we still have that mentality. Like our goal is to showcase good music. Like we don't care if an artist has 1 million followers, 100,000 followers, a verified check. You'll be surprised how many artist coverage requests we get that we deny from popular or popular online artists. Because we just don't feel the passion. So for us, when artists are pitching to us, we determine whether or not they go through a quality control check, right? To see, one, are they passionate about music, or are they doing music because it's the popular thing to do right now? And then what else comes with them? Are they really telling a story? How well are they crafting their art, right? Then we get into that realm, because we have these kind of barriers of access limited now, where you can upload on your cell phone or upload onto your computer and upload directly to SoundCloud. You can create a Spotify account. You can create an Apple Music account, right? But now we're filtering, like, okay, how strong is their writing? How strong are their vocals? How thoughtful are they with their album rollout, right? Are they consistent? Are they just putting out a song once a year or once every 2 years? So we're really doing and gravitating to that quality control check now. So I'm sure that as we get bigger and as our reach expands, we're probably going to start reaching out to those larger stories more. But right now, we're really comfortable with finding artists and developing a relationship with artists as they begin to develop. Like in the past, we wouldn't have covered a Phoebe Bridgers. It's because we feel like she has enough coverage, right? We don't need to reach out to her. We don't need to do coverage to her. But we feel like we need to tell a rounder story. We can still cover our underground community while also providing supplemental coverage to the larger artists. So it's a balancing act, if you will.
Right. You said you've turned down artists that had a decent following, but running an independent media, organization or a blog or a site, when you reach out to certain artists, I know I've experienced this, you get either ghosted or you get the question of, oh, what's your following like? And who have you talked to? Have you ever gotten that run around before?
Absolutely. We get it every day. Like, I just had an intern orientation for our site, for our summer writers coming on board. And one of the stories that I shared with them, understanding the media and the music relationship as it relates to artists, we've reached out. We have a really close relationship with a PR firm that I won't name, right? And the PR firm was pitching us to do an album review for one of their clients. And we were like, oh, it's funny that you reached out to us because we actually want to interview this artist and we didn't know that you were their representation. So would you mind reaching out to kind of secure the interview for us? And they came back to us. Mind you, we work with them a lot. They came back to us and they were like, actually, no, we're gonna pass. And I was just like, so we're good enough to do your writing when you want us to do it, but when we actually want to actually dive into these artists, now we're too small. So I was just like, all right, cool, right? Took it on the chin. And the intern was adamant. They're like, no, I want to interview this artist. And the intern reached out to the artist and the artist was like, yeah, why not? I don't see the problem. So for us, when we're navigating that kind of space, we tend to focus more so on the quality of our coverage rather than the quantity of our followers. Because we're a small, as far as social media reach, we're a small follower count, but our stories travel, right? Our stories are seen. Like, people read our stuff. So when it comes to that realm, it's kind of like a tango, if you will. So instead of saying, hey, we're growing or we're budding, we say, hey, take a look at our past coverage. Is this the type of coverage that your artist is looking for? Because you'll see oftentimes, and I'm sure you've had this experience, when an artist, you do a very thorough write-up on them. They won't even repost it. They get coverage from another platform and the site did one paragraph. And they're like, oh my God, I just was published in this platform. And I was just like, it was 2 sentences. It was 2 sentences. So like, we're trying to play the quality game and to show them like, hey, your artist may be looking to land an interview at these big, large publications, but actually we have the care and we have the trust and the quality of writing and coverage that your artist actually is looking for. So you let our past work speak for ourselves. Look at our interviews, look at our album reviews, look at our opinion pieces, look at what writers are writing about on our site. Just take a look at it. Look at the broadness of the artists that we cover, right? And then we let our work speak for ourselves, right? Yes, we still get declined, we still get passed up on, but that's not what we're interested in. We're interested in telling a story that's worth reading rather than, hey, click on one time and then never come back to the site, right?
Because when you keep worrying about your metrics, you're gonna lose sight of why you do this in the first place, and it's
are so finicky, right? We'll see it with social media. The algorithm changed. Now all of a sudden, someone that was super popular is no longer popular. You'll see it with YouTube. Once a YouTuber that was really popular, the algorithm changed. Now you can't find their videos anymore. So you'll see that when you play the metrics game, you're eventually shorting yourself because then you have to keep up with the metrics. When you actually build a readership, a viewership, a followership that value what you're producing, value your thoughts and opinions on different things, values your artists that you're spotlighting, they'll come back. They'll come back to you and your follower count will grow. We were really stuck on that in the beginning. Like, oh, we have to have this amount of followers. We have to have this amount of views. We have to have this amount of things. I'm just like, no, it matters about who's reaching out to us, who's following us. Like, I have labels that follow me. I have verified artists that follow me. I have artists that are popular. I get private invites to different things. So if we were playing the quality metrics game, I'm winning, right? Online, it may not look like that, but I'm about quality versus quantity.
I think you win when artists are reaching out to you, when labels are reaching out to you, and when they rely on you, when you become a trusted source. That's very important to me. I want to be a reliable source to an artist or a small label, because you have to grow together. You know what I mean? You can't just reach for the moon when you have your own galaxy already. You know what I mean? You have your own solar system. So I don't know. That's how I look at it. So in this crowded, congested media landscape, let's say if someone comes to you for advice and they kind of feel discouraged about starting a site, a blog, a podcast, etc., what would you say to that person?
It's easy to become anxious when you're comparing yourself to others. This is something that I had to learn the hard way with myself, and I still deal with this. So the way I combat it is, instead of saying why me, why not me, you have to change your viewpoint, right? We do have a lot of music publications now. We do have a lot of YouTube music review channels. We do have a large amount of podcasts that are related to music, but everyone's opinion is different. Everyone's audience is different. Everyone's interests are different. You have everything it takes in order for you to start your own platform. How you build, how you grow, and if you eventually leave that platform is totally up to you. Like, I think that sometimes we have this fixated way of viewing it. If I start a YouTube channel, I can never work for a music publication, or I'm going to be independent all the time. With Envert, I will only write for Envert. I wouldn't write for anything else. And this year in particular, I was just like, you know what? I'm not doing the people that value my opinion a service, right? Just because I don't focus on signed artists artists that are signed to the big three on Envert doesn't mean that I can't write for it somewhere else. And I think that for those who are stuck on that, like, why create a platform in a populated sea, I'll use like grocery stores as an example, right? So there's a Whole Foods, there's a Pathmark, there's a ShopRite, there's a Wawa's, there's a Piggly Wiggly, there's a Kroger. Like, there's a million different grocery stores. Like, just because a million different grocery stores exist doesn't mean that someone who shops at one place is only going to shop at that one place, right? Sometimes we're looking for a different viewpoint or a different take or a different approach onto something that we listen to, right? Some journalists are really good at album breakdowns. Some journalists are really good at opinion pieces. Some journalists are really good at news stories. Some journalists are really good at artist interviews, right? Everyone has an area that they're really good at in a viewpoint that comes with experience from their background, right? Depending on what you're listening to, what you grew up listening to, your preferences as far as sonically are concerned. So your opinion is valid. You deserve to give yourself even a chance to start it. If you find it too hard to continue, or you still find yourself discouraged, at least you can say you tried, right? Give yourself the chance and the effort and the grace that you give other people. When people are just starting off, you still watch their YouTube channels, you still listen to their podcasts. So why not give yourself the same opportunity to grow within your discipline?
Right. And I think one of the keys to that, and sticking out in a congested, media space, is being unique and offering a unique opinion, and also bringing a certain level of professionalism to it. You don't want to sound like a hack. You don't want to sound like you don't know what you're talking about. So that's the secret there. That's it. Just be you. Just come with you, and make sure, if you're talking about something that's not an opinion, that's true or false, you got to make sure it's true or not. You know what I mean? Because people will call you out on it eventually down the line when you get bigger. From your site, from Envert, artists that you've covered, give me some artists that you think I should pay attention to, or anybody that's listening should be aware of.
I mean, how much time do we have? Like, there's so many artists that I can kind of like name and go through the list of. I think that there are a few artists that I'm so into right now. One is Kiana, who is on Super Records. She is, oh my God, she's like the epitome of everything mixed together. Like, she touches everything: pop, folk, indigenous, reggaeton. She touches a lot of traditional Latin music. She's amazing, right? Instrumentalist. Latasha is not only a rapper, but she's a producer. She's an engineer. She's a visual artist. She's taking over in the NFT spaces. She's definitely another person to look after. There is another person that I think that you definitely would be interested in, and her name is Amber Ryan. And if you are really into Billie Eilish, Phoebe Bridges, if you're into like emo, pop, punk, even like you think about Olivia Rodrigo, I think Amber Ryan, if you listen to her, you're going to be obsessed. Like, she's going to be, I'm telling you now, 5 years from now, she's going to be the biggest thing in emo pop. Sam Soto is a really big artist. Radames is really good. And then I could go down to traditional people that you probably already know that I feel don't get enough credit, but Odyssey is an amazing artist that I think people don't really pay a lot of attention to. I mean, sheesh, it's so many people I can go to. Felicia Temple. You may have heard her name from The Voice, and I think it was just The Voice. So The Voice, Ali Caldwell, she was on The Voice and The Four. There are a bunch of people like, oh my God, I feel like the people I'm really close with are going to get so offended that I didn't say their name. But there's so many artists that you can listen to on the indie side that I think that deserve a listen.
Are you comfortable with going to shows? Because a lot of concerts and festivals have been announced for the summer and the fall. So are you ready for that?
I was born ready. I live and breathe concert shows. That's where I started my career in. Before I was even a music writer, I was event producing, event programming, event logistics. So I'm looking forward to the return of music. I am vaccinated, and I'm making sure that the shows that I attend are absolutely worth it, and that the venues are practicing some type of guidelines where they're either having people tested before they come in, or they have a rapid test station, or they have a body temperature scan check or something like that. So I am actually going to be going to my first show in July to check out Japanese Breakfast. I am freaking ecstatic. I cannot wait to see her live. Her album Jubilee would probably be out by then. So I'm just
it's already out. It's great.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have her book. I have a signed copy of her book. And Jubilee, it's just something that Lucy Dacus is going on tour too.
Yep.
I know that there's a bunch of artists that you've interviewed that I'm looking forward to going to their shows, but the show invites are coming in to Envert. Yep. Our largest portion of readership did come from show announcements, tour announcements, event promotions. So to see shows returning, it just warms my heart. So I'm ready. I'm not going to be going to like the big festivals like Lollapalooza or like Rolling Loud or anything like that. But like the smaller shows, the one-offs, I'm definitely going to be going.
That's what I'm most interested in. The smaller spots. And that's what makes New York cool. There's a lot of those shows happening.
Everywhere, every weekend. We have like the most venues and anywhere per capita. Like you have all of the Rough Trade kind of equivalents, like Music Hall of Williamsburg. You have Rough Trade just moved. You have Mercury Lounge. Then we have other small ones like Babies Are Right.
Oh, I love Babies.
Yeah, like you have so many. And then in Jersey, we have White Eagle Music Hall, which I frequently visit. So like there are so many venues. It's like next to impossible not to grab at least one show before the fall starts.
Okay, give me some singles, EPs, albums that you've loved so far in 2021. How much time do we have, right?
I know, like I don't want to like forget anyone, so I'll pick one from 2020 that we overlooked. I'll pick one indie for 2021 and then one major for 2021. So the one in 2020 that I feel like was like super overlooked and I think was a very solid EP was Odyssey's The Odd Cure. And if you're really into the structured albums that have a concept, that EP is amazing. The concept is COVID and how that kind of played into a factor with a lot of musicians. So like it has like go-go, it has rap, it has pop, it has alternative. Every sound you could think of is on that project. As far as 2021, call me silly, but I've been like obsessed with Olivia Rodrigo Sour, and maybe it's like the inner 12-year-old teen in me, like that's like dying over this album, but it reminds me a lot of like Haley Williams. So I'm like living for it from Paramore. And then obviously Japanese Breakfast Jubilee. So like those are the ones that I'm like gravitating towards. There are a lot of other albums that came out, a lot of other singles that came out, but those are the ones I'm just like chef's kiss.
All right. Flisadam, thank you so much for coming here on Milo Underground. Get your plugs in. Tell people where to follow you, Envert and IEMC and everything like that.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I truly do appreciate it. We support the same type of artists. We have the same mission, so it means a lot to be here. If you are interested in following me as an individual, you can contact me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Flisadam. That's Flisadam and the letter P. Across platforms, same handle. For indie music that we're checking out on Envert, you can catch us on social media at Envert with an E, ENVRT media. And if you are a journalist that are looking was looking for support in your journey to figure out rates and how to pitch and different opportunities that you have as a writer or a media figure, the IEMC is definitely your bet, and we can be reached across social media at IEM Coalition on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and then iemcoalition.net on our website.